Hello, my name is Drew Kinsey, Senior Research Analyst with MU Extension, Agriculture Business and Policy. Today, I'm going to be walking through how to use the 2026 crop budget spreadsheet. To find the spreadsheet, open up a browser window like Google. Once Google's open, we'll type in a search query, something easy like MUEXT for extension ag biz. We'll hit enter and search the term. One of the first things that pops up should be the Agriculture Business and Policy page. We'll click on the link and go to the page. Once we're on the page, the best place to find the enterprise budgets are to scroll down a little ways and go to the enterprise budget subheading. We'll click on the heading and we'll see a list of all the enterprise budgets broken out by commodity type, from crops to livestock and poultry to specialty agriculture. To find a crop budget, we can go into any of the main commodities listed here, like corn, soybean, sorghum, or wheat. Southeast Missouri specific budgets can be found under the rice, cotton, and peanuts heading, as well as the Southeast Missouri corn, soybeans, sorghum, or wheat crops under their respective headings. The statewide forage budgets can be found underneath the forage headings. We'll go through the corn menu to open up the crop budget spreadsheet. The crop budget spreadsheet can be found under this link as indicated by the acronym XLSX. We'll click on the link and the spreadsheet should download in the top right-hand corner of your screen. We'll click on that link in the download pane, which should get the spreadsheet opening on your computer. Once the spreadsheet is open, there's one more thing we need to do before we can start editing. If you see this protected view menu at the top of your screen, this might come up if your computer wants to make sure you're opening secure downloaded documents. We know this is from a secure source, so we'll click the button and be ready to edit. On the introduction page of the crop budget spreadsheet, you'll see the authors of the budgets, as well as the introduction as far as what's included on each of the budgets. Down below, there are convenient links that go back to each of the individual budgets on the MU Extension webpage. The best way to go through the spreadsheet is to navigate from left to right. So past the introduction page, we'll go to the input prices. The input prices page are where certain inputs that are carried throughout the entire spreadsheet are located. Things like fertilizer prices, labor rate, fuel price, interest rate, and the farm business overhead are included here. To change one of these values, simply click into one of the boxes and then overwrite the current text with your own price. For instance, if you have a cheaper nitrogen price than the current 70 cents per pound of N for granular liquid nitrogen, we'll just input the new value, so say that's 65 cents, so 0.65. And that'll overwrite the current 70-cent price for the new 65-cent price. The individual budget sheets are very similar. Since we navigated through the corn window, we'll talk about corn during this demonstration. On the corn budget, and all the budgets, the top section is for income. Here you'll find the primary crop revenue, which is our yield in bushels per acre times our price per bushel. Our byproduct crop revenue is for any secondary income that we have for other products off of our crops that are grown. For instance, corn stalk bales in a corn budget or straw on the wheat budget. So if we have 4 corn stalk bales per acre and we sell those bales for $40 a piece, we can enter 4 in our quantity column and 40 in our price per unit column to get $160 of additional revenue. Take note that adding in byproduct sales does not have any effect on the nutrient costs from the additional nutrients removed. So that is something else that would need to be considered if you're considering adding byproduct sales. In the operating cost section, you can find the typical production inputs in order to grow the crop for the year. All of the gray cells throughout the budget sheets are able to be edited, while the white cells are restricted in order to protect the formulas and structure of the spreadsheet. For instance, if we are applying 100% of our nitrogen from anhydrous, we could make that change by getting rid of our 40 pounds of nitrogen applied through urea or liquid fertilizer from our nitrogen other than anhydrous row, by deleting that value and then adding that 40 pounds or whatever other amount you want to use in the nitrogen from anhydrous row to have a 100% anhydrous supplied nitrogen source. Moving down below, the crop protection chemicals are organized by the number of passes that we're making with the sprayer for each chemical type. So these costs don't necessarily reflect the exact cost for your post-emergent pass. For instance, if our pre-emergent was $31 an acre and our post-emergent was $41 an acre, that would get us to this average at 2 passes at $36 per pass. And this is not including application costs, which will be covered down below in the custom hire or own machinery sections. Our ownership costs are below our operating costs to cover some of the overhead for the operation, including our real estate charge, which is what you charge yourself for the land, whether that via a cash rent or a ownership charge if it's land that you own, in order to justify some return on that investment. Lastly, at the bottom of the budget sheet are our machinery assumption tabs. Here, we can select different custom hire activities as well as enter the different pieces of machinery that we're using from our own fleet in order to put the crop in. To edit the custom hire field, there's drop-down menus in the activity column where you can select from a long list of different activities. In order to make searching the list easier, each boxes are also searchable. So for example, if we want to say we're having our anhydrous custom applied, we can move down to a new line, start typing in anhydrous, and that comes up with injecting anhydrous ammonia. Select that box and the rate will automatically be populated from our hidden custom rates database. Since we included injecting anhydrous ammonia in the custom rate section, that means we most likely aren't doing it with our own machinery anymore. So since that's included down below with our own 40-foot anhydrous applicator, if your operation doesn't have that, simply delete the piece of equipment owned as well as the power source owned. In the own machinery section, there are 3 different inputs that you'll need to put in. First is the implement used. This is another drop-down menu where you can select from a long list. So in this instance, we're still using a disk. We want to find a smaller disk. So we'll start typing in the same title. So it's called a tandem disk in our database. We're going to go down to our smaller disk, which is a 21 footer. That 21 footer is way too small for our 400 horsepower tractor. So in our power use column, which is the second column here, we're going to select a different tractor. To find different pieces, the names always start with the power rating or another numeric indicator for vehicle size. So typically, if you're looking for a tractor, the best way is to start by searching for the power you're looking for. So for a 21-foot disc, I'd say we're going to want, say, a 200 horsepower tractor to pull that. So we'll type in a 2, and there's a list of everything starting with a 2. Our 200 horsepower front wheel assist tractor is selected, and now we have our cost for the smaller disc with the smaller tractor. Another way we can influence costs is by the passes or hours used per acre. Certain items are billed differently, whether it's per acre or per hour. For instance, our grain carts are allocated per hour, our grain hauling units are allocated per hour. So where we can make that change is if we are not going to use our field cultivator on a particular field, we can get rid of the one pass to zero out our field cultivator cost, even though the input for the field cultivator and tractor is still there. And we're going to be disking that field twice instead of once. So change that 1 for a 2, and we're ready to go with the second disc pass, and our tillage operations are covered. The sensitivity analysis compares the return to land and management, which we previously discussed, at different price levels and yield levels. So as price gets higher, we can see the change in net income per acre, and as yield gets higher, we can see the same change. The blue cell is the default scenario. All of the budget tabs are fairly similar beyond the corn budget, so we don't need to cover those twice. However, at the end of the spreadsheet, there's a summary of crop costs and returns that compares each of the budgets to one another in case you're in a position where you have some flexibility on what crop is being planted. That way you can compare the budgeted returns between crops and get a better idea of what a rotation for your operation looks like for the upcoming year. That concludes the demonstration for how to use the Missouri crop budgets. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me by email at dkientzy, Kientzy, @missouri.edu.